I'm Kennedy, and welcome to it with the great white shark of libertarian thought. It's Reason Magazine editor-in-chief Matt Welch. And we're joined by the dapper and dangerous Camille Foster from Free Think Media. And together we are the Independents. Yesterday, General Martin Dempsey said before Congress that if the anti-ISIS coalition fails, he suggests that the president send in ground troops. The president knows no one has the stomach or patience for another long ground war in the Middle East. And here's the president clearly at odds with one of his most senior advisors.
The American forces that have been deployed to Iraq do not and will not have a combat mission. They will support Iraqi forces on the ground as they fight for their own country against these terrorists. As your commander-in-chief, I will not commit you and the rest of our armed forces to fighting another ground war in Iraq.
Until I do. But can you have it both ways? Or is our commander-in-chief politically painting himself into an impossible corner? Well, let's ask our party panel. We've assembled a few good men today. We've got Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com, and Rick Ungar, senior political contributor at Forbes. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Nice to be here.
Very good to have you here. And the news is boiling, it is broiling, it is saucy, and it is a little bit scary. But I have to ask, if Dempsey's hypothetical comes true and boots land in Iraq and maybe Syria, what does this do to the president's legacy and credibility, and does he care? Now, Rick, you're more of a lefty, so what do you say? How do you advise the president in this situation?
Well, it's more important what I think is going to happen, I think, than how I would advise him, because I would bet you your analysis was perfect at the front. This president is actually gambling that airstrikes will work for the rest of his term. That's what he's really gambling. We will put boots on the ground, but it'll likely be the next president who has to come.
Okay, so you think we're 2 years away from some sort of a ground?
I think he's counting on the fact that we can stretch it out that long.
And what do you think, Guy?
I'm struck. First of all, I want to say I support the president's campaign on airstrikes, certainly. But I'm struck over and over again, day after day, by the absolute incoherence of the administration on this issue. Let's think about this. Gosh. A year ago, literally a year ago, we were going to bomb Assad. Now we're bombing Assad's enemies, effectively acting as his air force.
Yes.
6 months ago, ISIS was a JV squad. Now it's a cancer that will take 3 years to defeat. A month ago, training the Syrian and arming the Syrian rebels was a fantasy. Now it's official policy.
Because they're doctors and pharmacists and gardeners.
Biden says we're going to, go to the gates of hell to follow these guys, but not with boots on the ground. And it is a war. No, it's not a war. Kerry can't figure that out.
What a kooky, crazy world we live in.
No, it is a little kooky and crazy, but it's a little scary. Just as an average person out there watching this, it's like, I don't think they know what they're doing.
All right, so Matt, let me ask you, who is the president anticipating? Who is he talking to when he makes these speeches? Because, they say that when the president speaks, it's actually a good campaign tool for ISIS, that they have more signups every time the president makes one of these grandstanding appearances. But who is he talking to when he says these contradictory things?
I think it's a great question, and I think the answer is that he's talking to someone that people like John McCain almost never talk to, which is American public opinion. Well, I've seen a lot of Republicans in the last couple of weeks and today on the Hill talk about how we need to annihilate them, period. We need to go all in, nothing, leave nothing off the table and just get there until we get it done. That is unrealistic, and it also does not take into account public opinion. I'm not defending the president. I think he's been incredibly incoherent every single day. Every time he opens his mouth, he's incoherent, and he's compounding that by insisting that we have a comprehensive strategy and, we're really doing a great job here. That's not true. However, he's making a nod to public opinion. Public opinion wants to bomb ISIS. They have the Gaia solution, but they don't want boots on the ground. And you cannot have a sustained American foreign policy having to do with the military that does not have public opinion, because it will eventually evaporate.
I think you're absolutely right. And Camille, I want you to address this, because the president said he wants to degrade and destroy, but it doesn't seem like you can do that with an air campaign alone.
Well, no one believes that plan has any credibility. Almost no one except the president, who keeps insisting.
Guy does. I mean, Guy supports the
I'm not sure that's what
I support.
I
didn't. Right, I said I support that element of what he's doing. I'm much more concerned about arming people who are probably not going to be remotely reliable, or even if they are, they could get overrun again by radicals. Well, that's what I'm concerned about.
And I think that's true. I think the likelihood of that is incredibly high. In fact, The issue I have is why we are still involved in Iraq at all. Like, what is the premise for us saying that this is essential to U.S. security?
Yeah.
If there is no credible threat from ISIS, who can say for sure that ISIS would have grown uncontrollably absent the intervention of the United States? If anything, it seems incredibly true that making ISIS the focal point of U.S. foreign policy has actually brought more attention to them, has helped to bring together more factions of people who dislike us.
Yeah.
And even if we're successful, the best case outcome is we empower Iran and we empower Syria.
Okay.
And you create a region in which those two people, who we apparently hate, would thrive.
Okay,
that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
First of all, how do you know that the rebels, the supposed moderates that you're training in Jordan, how do you know that, because they're Assad's foe, ISIS is also Assad's foe, why wouldn't they join forces with ISIS?
They signed a non-compete agreement, basically, like a non-aggression pact last week. So it's like, there's another
What do you think helped
problem.
to precipitate that?
But
Why do you think they did that?
So just two very quick points to respond. First, to Matt's point on public opinion, if the president is trying to thread a needle on public opinion, he's doing a terrible job of it, because the new New York Times poll shows that 58% of Americans think that he is being not tough enough against ISIS. 31% say roughly okay, and I think it's 2% say he's being too tough.
And they all want him to go to Congress, which he won't do.
2%, that's within the margin of error. But on the point of
Congress won't have him. Yes.
No, most of Congress doesn't want him to go to
they
Congress.
Won't have him.
But he also won't early.
It's easier to blame him if he screws everything up without their votes on the record, which will absolutely come back.
He could insist on it. He is not doing that. He is claiming. Actually, he could. He could say, "I can't do this absent the authority from Congress."
Yeah.
He has said, "I have the authority," over and over again, and has asserted that despite the fact that there are members of Congress on both sides of the aisle who says he needs.
And I'll tell you what it is, and because
you're all right.
We have to move on. Number one, if they agree on the language and say it's a war, he has to go to Congress. And number two, if he says there's no imminent threat, he has to go to Congress. So if it's going to last longer than 60 days, exactly. So he has to go to Congress.
He's using the authorization for use of military force, saying that's the war, and so he doesn't need to go to Congress.
Well, thank you, George W. Bush. What a Christmas present. All right, the House